you action figure enthusiasts out there, JC here with another T&I video. Now today's video is going to be something a little bit different. So with the end of the year almost upon us, I'm going to start doing a series of videos of a combination of either the best of 2019 or giving you a list of figures that I want to see in the coming year 2020. And so today's video is going to be more in lines with that. And if you're not been watching the new Mandalorian TV series on the Disney Plus streaming service, so that the final episode for the first season just aired on Friday. It's been great. I really like the series. It's not perfect. It's not 100% perfect. There's some times where it drags a little bit, where maybe I felt like they could have done a little more to further the overall story. But still, in general, I think they've done a great job. It's got a great foundation. This series, I think, has a bright future, and definitely looking forward to the second season. Now, if you haven't subscribed to the Disney Plus service and you've not yet watched the Mandalorian series yet, and you want to avoid all spoilers, though honestly at this stage that's got to be pretty hard if you spend any time on the internet, but regardless, if you are trying to avoid all spoilers for the Mandalorian TV series, then you probably don't want to watch this video. I'm not going to go into super spoiler territory here. I'm not going to give away major plot basically lines of the series and things like that, but we are going to be discussing characters that pop up throughout the season, and I'm going to give you some brief backgrounds on the characters and stuff as I talk about them. So again, if you want to avoid all spoilers for this show, then you probably want to hold off on watching this video at this time. But today's focus is I'm going to be giving you my list of top 10 figures after watching season 1 of the Mandalorian series, the top 10 figures I'd like to see Hasbro do for the 6-inch Black Series line in 2020. So first of all, if you're not familiar, Hasbro has already done a number of figures for the Mandalorian TV series. For the Black Series, they've done a total of 5 figures, with a 6th one coming pretty soon that they've already announced. So just to recap those, they gave us the Mandalorian wearing the armor that he has in the first episode. And, this is one of those minor spoilers. He does get upgrades and actual kind of different armor as the season goes along. So this is the armor that he wears at the beginning of season 1, this figure that Hasbro did. And so, it's a cool figure and everything. And then the second figure that they've done for the Mandalorian is called an off-world Jawa, which apparently Jawas exist outside of Tatooine. And apparently the ones that don't live on Tatooine have red eyes as opposed to yellow eyes. I don't know why that is, but I mean, maybe it's just this one planet that we see them on. I'm not sure, but we see them on multiple planets in the show. So, and actually I think each time we've seen them in this show, they've had red eyes. So like I said, I don't know what it is about Tatooine and the yellow eyes, but it seems like everywhere else these guys are at, they have red eyes. So we got a figure of that with the red eyes. Then we got IG-11, which is a bounty hunter droid, very similar to IG-88. He appears in the first episode, and he is a Best Buy exclusive. He was released back when the Triple Force Friday figures came out, and he was one of the first Mandalorian figures that they did. And he does play a significant role in the series. So, he's very similar to IG-88 that we saw in Empire Strikes Back. We see him, he does a lot more in this series than we ever saw IG-88 do. So that's definitely cool. But figure-wise, I did a review on him several weeks ago, and he's very similar to the IG-88 figure. And then Cara Dune is another figure. She's a character. She is an ex-Rebel Alliance shock trooper who now basically is just kind of does her own thing, and she's a pretty cool character. I really have enjoyed that character, and the figure is really well done and captures the likeness of the character. Again, I did a review of her not too long ago, and if you're a fan of the show or what have you, I think that's a figure you're definitely going to want to add to your collection. Then the 5th figure that they've released so far is the Heavy Infantry Mandalorian. So this guy appears in one of the episodes. I think it's episode 3, I believe it was. Yeah, I think it was episode 3, and he's pretty cool. He's a heavier set dude than most of the Mandalorians that we've seen. He's got the big machine type gun and the jetpack and everything. And he is another Best Buy exclusive. He's probably much harder to get than the IG-11 figure. I ended up getting mine on off the Best Buy website, but I've yet to see him on actual shelves. So I haven't actually been in Best Buy in a couple weeks, so I don't know, he might be there now. And then the final figure that they've announced but yet to release is the character known simply right now as the Child, though everyone refers to him online as Baby Yoda. I don't think he's Yoda. I mean, we don't really know much about this character at this time, but I don't think he's actually Yoda, but because he looks like Yoda, he's part of the same race as Yoda, everyone refers to him as Baby Yoda. And Hasbro has said they are doing a Black Series figure of him that's going to cost about $10. Okay, so that's recapping all the figures that we know Hasbro has either done or will be doing in the near future. And now I want to give you my top 10 list of figures after watching season 1 that I would like to see Hasbro do in 2020. Hopefully Hasbro will start putting a real focus on this series. I know we've got, Rise of Skywalker and still obviously, the prequels and original trilogy, but I really think while I've seen Rise of Skywalker twice and I stand by my initial review of that movie, that I think it's a really good movie, even though there are a lot of people, once again with Star Wars, who seem to hate it. I don't understand it. I don't know. It's just, I don't get the hate that a lot of people have been throwing towards the movie, but I'm not going to get into that. But I do think far more people seem to be more excited about the Mandalorian TV series than they are about the movies right now. And so I really feel like Hasbro should be putting a lot of focus in the coming year into doing toys and figures and stuff for the Mandalorian series. Now, obviously, because the Mandalorian right now is only available on the Disney Plus service, I'm sure they will release DVDs and such so people can catch up later on. But right now, the only way to watch it really is on the Disney Plus service. And right now, really, the only thing honestly worth subscribing for on Disney Plus, in my opinion. I mean, if there's cool stuff, old shows and stuff to watch, but like X-Men animated series and stuff like that. But honestly, right now, the only show out there that's really worth, in my opinion, subscribing to Disney Plus is this Mandalorian TV series. Now, that's going to change in the coming year with all the new Marvel shows and stuff. If you're a Marvel fan and a Star Wars fan, I don't see how you're going to resist not subscribing to the streaming service. I know there's so many streaming services out there now, it gets ridiculous. But like I said, if you're a Marvel and Star Wars fan, I don't see how you're going to resist this one. But I realize at this stage, there may be a lot of you out there who have not yet had access to this show. And I know people who live in different countries, I don't even think have it available yet. So I understand that even though the season has technically come to an end, there's probably a lot of people out there, more people that have not yet watched it than have watched it. But let me just tell you, it is a great series and definitely gives me a lot of hope for the future of Star Wars. I really feel like Disney is going to kind of probably shift focus on Star Wars to be primarily a TV thing. I think Star Wars actually works better as a TV series than as a movie because you can flesh out the characters and everything much better, and you can go in more detail and stuff. So over the years with all the literature and everything, there's a lot of lore that comes with Star Wars that's just really hard to capture in a 2-hour movie, and that's one of the reasons why I think maybe people end up having issues with the movies and stuff. So I really feel like Star Wars is going to do better as TV series, as a series of TV series. We already know the Obi-Wan Kenobi series is coming, and I would love to see them expand that out and do more. Like if they wanted to continue the Han Solo story, I think that would make a much better TV series than trying to do another Han Solo movie and what have you. So but anyway, get way off track here. So my top 10 list now, again, these are the characters after watching season 1 that I would really like to see. Now there are a few other honorable mentions I'll go over as well. But these are the 10 that I really hope to see Hasbro do in the coming year. And obviously this would also apply, in my opinion, to the vintage collection. I also collect the vintage collection stuff, and so I would love to see these characters in the 4-inch scale as well. Now for vintage collection, they really haven't released anything yet for the Mandalorian, but they did announce a couple months ago at some of the overseas conventions, like they're doing Cara Dune, they're doing a Remnant Stormtrooper, I believe, was announced, and obviously the Mandalorian, wearing that first same armor that they did the 6-inch Black Series version of. So I think those are the three characters that they've announced so far for the Vintage Collection line. But again, I would love to see them do all these characters in the 4-inch line as well as the 6-inch line. But for my list, so we're going to start at number 10 and work our way down to number 1, so least to best. And starting at number 10, I chose the character known as Rand Malk. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Now, he's a fairly common human-looking character. He's got the long gray hair and the beard. He's a shorter dude. He's not like Ugnaught Jawa short, but he's he's not super tall either. He's kind of heavy set. So he's not the most, he's not a cool looking alien or robot or anything like that. But this is a character that seems to have a history with the Mandalorian. And I feel very strongly we will be seeing this character again down the road. And just because of that and, his ties to other characters in the show, I feel like he will make a pretty interesting action figure. So he is number 10 on my list. And then followed in the same line of thought is the character simply known as the Client. So this is another pretty normal looking human character. However, this one, he appears in the first episode and he does appear in other episodes as well. It does have affiliations with the Empire, which you can tell just by looking at him. He's got that necklace with the Imperial symbol on it. And then, so again, he's a normal looking dude, but with his ties to the Empire, I think he would make an interesting action figure. And you'll notice in this image that white device that he has in his hand, it's a vault type thing. It's a safe. You punch in a combination and it opens up. It's kind of a portable safe that has valuable stuff in it. And so I think it would be cool if they included that with the figure, and even cooler if they can make it so you can actually have it open up and maybe have some valuable stuff inside of it as well. So that is my, that's the figure that makes number 9 on my list. Now for number 8, this is the first alien I have on the list, and her name is Xi'an, and she appears in episode 6 of the series. Now, a lot of the characters I actually have on this list do first appear in that series, including the number 10 Rand Malk figure or character. So she is another one that appears in that episode, and she also has ties to the Mandalorian, possibly of sexual nature. They didn't go into super detail, but definitely these two have a past together, and she likes to play with knives. She's a knife expert. We've seen her species before many times in the Star Wars, throughout Star Wars. So, but I definitely think she would make an interesting character. Her skin is kind of a purple pinkish tint to it, as opposed to like green or blue like we've seen with other characters of her race. But definitely I would enjoy seeing an action figure of her done at some point. Now for number 7, again, we've got another episode 6 character. This one, this character's name is Mayfield. He again is a human, and he's an ex-Imperial agent who is said to be a sharpshooter, if there is such a thing in the Imperial Army. And his cool thing is, his gimmick is he has this backpack that has these arms that will pop out holding blasters, so that essentially he can be like firing 4 blasters at one time. So as long as they incorporate that feature with the figure, I definitely feel like he is worthy of the action figure treatment. And then number 6 is another character from episode 6. All these guys hang out together. They're mercenary type characters and stuff that we see with Mandalorian in that episode. And this guy, he's a big bruiser, strong type character. His name is Berg, and he likes to beat up things, including seems to really want to beat up the Mandalorian. And I think would make a great action figure. He doesn't have really much in the way of cool gimmicks. He does have 2 blasters, but his big thing is he just he's a big strong dude that likes to beat up stuff. So definitely, because he's a cool alien and all, I think he would make a great action figure. Now, I will say, while I didn't put him on my list, there was another character that ran with this group, a droid by the name of Zero. And I don't know why I didn't put him on the list. Obviously, droids generally do make pretty cool action figures, but at the time that I was thinking about these characters, he just did not come to mind. So, I don't know. But I'm sure probably there are those who definitely would like to see Zero made as an action figure, and so I'm going to list him as an honorable mention. But again, he did not actually make my top 10 list. Okay, now getting into the final 5. So number 5 is almost a no-brainer. I cannot imagine that Hasbro would not do this character. You probably recognize him as a well-known actor by the name of Carl Weathers, who appeared in movies like Predator and Rocky. So again, being that he's just such a well-known actor and all, I can't believe they're not going to do his figure. And he plays a pivotal role in the series. He is the current head of the Bounty Hunter Guild, and he appears in multiple episodes, and I feel pretty sure that we will see him into the second season. And, again, being that it's Carl Weathers and everything, unless there's some kind of likeness issue, I cannot imagine that they would not do this figure at some point. So to me, this is more about a win as opposed to if. Number 4 is one of the few actual Mandalorians that I have on my list. This is a pretty unique looking Mandalorian. It's actually a female character, and I don't know if she is technically supposed to be the current leader of the Mandalorians, though that, while they don't specifically say that, that is pretty much how they kind of portray her. So she's also, basically works with metal and creates things like weapons and stuff. She creates the armor and stuff. So, again, they simply refer to her as the armorer, and she has this thing that she uses to melt metal. She does a lot of smelt work, so it would be cool if they could incorporate in some way that device to go along with the figure. It's kind of big, but I definitely think Hasbro could maybe find a way to do it. So if they could do that, I definitely think this is a must-have. But honestly, even without that, just such a unique looking Mandalorian with the helmet with the horns on it, and she's got the fur on the shoulders and everything. I really think this would make a great action figure. And again, being she seems to play such a key role, I can't imagine they're not going to do her at some point. Coming in at number 3 is the new bad guy in town. So this guy appears in the last 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. And if you're not familiar, so this show takes place between the events of Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, and seems to take place closer to the events of Return of the Jedi than Force Awakens. There are still remnants of the Empire around. After the battle at Endor, the Empire didn't just disappear. They kind of splintered off into various groups and stuff. And so this guy seems to be one of those power brokers who kind of broke off and kind of started building up his own Imperial army. So he goes by the name of Mothe Gideon, and he wears this Imperial armor type outfit. So it's very similar. The armor, the chest plate and everything is very similar to what we saw with like General Veers in Empire Strikes Back on Hoth, only it's black as opposed to gray. It doesn't have the same kind of Imperial markings we normally see with, the Imperial officers. So I don't know if that's because he's a Moff or what, but definitely the markings are a little bit different. But same design as far as the armor goes. He does have a cape, because any good bad guy in the Star Wars universe has to have a cape, of course. He does not have a mask or helmet or anything. Even he flies around in a TIE fighter. We see him in a TIE fighter. And even when he's in the TIE fighter, he's not wearing any kind of helmet or anything. So he wears no helmet or mask at all. And he does come with a pretty unique item, which I'm not going to tell you about specifically because that is very spoilerish. But definitely, if they do an action figure of this guy, it is an item that we've seen before in Star Wars. And if they do this guy, I definitely hope they include that item with him as well. Coming in at number 2 is a very cool character that was introduced in the season. He's an Ugnaught, so another type of species that we first saw in Empire Strikes Back, but gets more predominantly portrayed in this series. His name is Cole, I believe is how you pronounce it. And because he's a smaller character, an Ugnaught, which would make a smaller figure, I feel like he should also be included with the beast that he rides around on, which is called a blurg. So these blurgs we see multiple times in the season. And again, because, this is an Ugnaught character who's smaller, I feel like Hasbro could get away with adding a blurg with him so that, kind of giving us a full-size figure. Maybe even like a deluxe, $25 figure as opposed to $20. But I really feel like they could include the blurg with this one so they have something to ride around with. And definitely a character that is worthy of getting the action figure treatment. Now, coming in at number 1 is The Mandalorian, once again, what I call version 2. So as I said, The Mandalorian does get upgrades to his armor throughout the season and essentially gets a new armor at one point, which is what you're seeing here. You can see it's much shinier, much more silver. And if they do this figure, which again, I can't imagine they won't, but hopefully I would love to see a vac metal version of this. We never got that with Captain Phasma, so I'd love to see them do that with the Mandalorian. But even if they don't go the vac metal route, hopefully they will give him a really cool metallic silver paint job with the armor, and definitely want to see this version of Mandalorian done in action figure form. So, being he's the star of the show and all, this is the character that I am putting at number 1 on my list. Now, because there are a couple items that appear in the show that I feel like would be deserving of like the deluxe status. And when I say deluxe, I'm not talking like the heavy Mandalorian is a bigger figure, costs a little bit more, things like that. But when I say deluxe here, I'm referring to like, small vehicles with figures, or small beasts like we've seen with the speeder bike and the biker scout and Tauntaun and Han and Luke and Wampa and things like that. So that's kind of the category I'm putting these two listings in. So the first one seems like a no-brainer. It would just be a simple repaint, and that's the Biker Scout with a white speeder bike that we see in this series. I don't know why their speeder bikes are white, but they are, as opposed to brown like we saw in Endor. I mean, it's not even like a snow planet. If they were riding around on a snow planet, I could maybe understand why they're white. But as it is, I guess just to differentiate them a bit, they made these bikes white. So it would be a simple repaint, probably dirty up the Biker Scouts a little bit more. Now you'll see in this image, one of the Biker Scouts is carrying a satchel. Hopefully that satchel will be included. If they do this, they'll include the satchel along with the contents inside, which I'm not going to tell you what those are, but hopefully that is something they include if they end up releasing the Biker Scout with a speeder bike as a deluxe type figure. And then the final one is, it's another Mandalorian figure. So again, Mandalorian gets upgrades and modifications and stuff throughout the series. So with this one, I would like it to be how he appears at the very end of the final episode of season 1, with all of his accessories and markings and everything. And then I would also like to see them include a Baby Yoda with a floating carrier, stroller type thing like you see in this image. Let's go with the one he gets by the end of the season. He has a different carrier or stroller at the beginning, and then this one at the end that you see in this image. So this is the one I'd like to see them do. It opens and closes, so hopefully they would add that feature. If they can make it so Baby Yoda is removable and actually a posable figure, that would be great as well. But even if they just have it so Baby Yoda sits inside there, I think that would be cool with a translucent display stand so that it looks like it's floating in the air. And then to go the extra mile, we also see Mandalorian riding one of the blurgs a couple different times in the season. So again, if you wanted to put it in there with like as a deluxe type figure, a small beast and figure type deal, I think you could throw in a blurg for Mandalorian to ride in as well. So that makes my second deluxe type figure set that I would love to see them do. And then finally, while I don't think it's feasible for them to do the Mandalorian ship, the Razor Crest, in the 6-inch Black Series line, it's just too big of a ship to be practical. I definitely feel like they should be doing it for the Vintage Collection line, a detailed, good interiors of the vehicle and everything. It's going to make it pricey. I'm sure this would probably be something that costs easily over $100 if they do it right. But definitely would love to see them do the Razor Crest for the Vintage Collection line and do a good Vintage Collection detailed ship of it, not like a cheaper version for the kids and stuff. If they end up doing the Razor Crest, I really hope they go all out and do it. Again, I don't think it's practical to do. I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's practical to do a 6-inch version. But definitely for vintage collectors, I'd love to see them do the Razor Crest. Okay, so that rounds out my list of figures that I would like to see. Now, things like Remnant Stormtroopers, I mean, that's almost a given that they're going to do that. That's just taking a Stormtrooper and adding dirt and markings to him. So, like I said, they already pretty much announced that for the Vintage Collection line. I'm sure Hasbro will get around to doing versions of the Stormtrooper from this series for the 6-inch Black Series. For me personally, it's just, I've got plenty of Stormtroopers, so I wouldn't be terribly interested in that. But if you are an army builder of Stormtroopers and you like all kinds of different stormtroopers. That's probably something you'd like. There's some other types of droids that we see in the show that might make cool figures, but I didn't feel like they played large enough roles to really warrant that right away. I mean, down the line, if they want to do more stuff, that's great. There's a rebel soldier or an alliance soldier that appears in the show that might make an interesting figure. But again, they just didn't play large enough roles in the overall show to warrant right now getting figures of those characters. So these are the ones. These are the top 10 figures, along with the 2 deluxe. And then for the vintage collection, I'd love to see a Razor Crest ship. Hopefully Hasbro will, already working on this stuff. If they're going to get it out in 2020, I'm sure they are, and maybe we'll see a lot of this stuff announced at Toy Fair in February. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you seen the show? What do you think of the show? And if you've seen the show and everything, what action figures or stuff from the show would you like to see made, for Black Series or Vintage Collection line? Let me know in the comments section below. And until next time, guys, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, and until next time, I'll catch you later.
Hey, thanks for watching today's video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification so alerted every time I upload a new video. And be sure to head over to the Toy News International and Marvelous News Message Boards communities. It's a great place to talk toys and win cool contests like $100 store credits to Big Bad Toy Store. And remember, action figures are great.